Could the current stadium mess in Tampa Bay force the commissioner to make a deal involving selling the Rays? That sentence almost made sense.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all the Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, and the best way to get a hold of me is to just put down put it down here in the YouTube comments. Put it down in YouTube comments, and when you're doing it, by the way, when you're putting in a comment down there, make sure to put that hashtag #EverydaySully. It helps us figure out who is doing what and where and why. And let's see, what else can I tell you? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet on FanDuel, which is an official partner of the NBA. And let's go through the trivia question. The trivia question I had was, who was the first left-handed American League pitcher to throw a perfect game? And my couple people got it right, but the one that I'm going to put right up here is from Cubs fan who I've known for years and years and years. Got it right. It was Kenny Rogers. I did a double take when I saw that fact. I said, really? Yeah, it was Kenny Rogers. And he did it in the weeks just before the strike in 1994. Very, very, very strange. But there you go. There's a couple other pieces of news going on in the baseball world, and I'm going to get into a few of them. I am going to acknowledge a couple people want me to have written to me wanting to address the Pete Rose situation. I'm so sick of talking about Pete Rose. And the more I read about Pete Rose, it's unbelievable the misinformation of Pete Rose over the years. I'll talk about it later this week. Part of me is almost like, fine, if you put him in, will you shut up about him? That would have been Pete Rose's nightmare to be put into the Hall of Fame, because then the story would be over and no one would think about him. We'll talk about it, but I'm not going to devote a whole podcast about it because there's really not a lot to talk about. But I will address that later. And I'll address another big thing involving the Yankees in the third segment. There's not a lot to talk about it because of the fact that it's still being rumors. But there's a thing that was written that Evan Drellich of The Atlantic, and this was also included in MLB trade rumors, but a bunch of people wrote to me about this evening. All hell is breaking loose with the potential deal of the stadium in St. Petersburg. There was a deal in place. We've all known that we've gone through this. There was a deal in place between Pinellas County, the city of St. Petersburg, Florida, and the Rays. And then the roof got blown off in the hurricane. And suddenly the Rays wanted the deal to be different. Somehow a month delay meant a year delay or something. I never quite could make heads or tails of what they're talking about. Pinellas County and St. Petersburg basically called the Rays bluff and said, all right, fine, we approve the deal. Now it's up to you. And now the Rays are dragging. There's a lot of dragging their feet. A lot of people pointing. He said, she said. The Rays would have to include more money in it. I say good. Pinellas County and St. Petersburg have a lot more important things to do with their time and public money than build a stadium. I've made it clear. I'm pretty consistent on this. This penny that I'm holding right now is more than ever should be spent of public money on a stadium. It's not a public entity. It's not a public utility. There are important things. There are things that you use public money for. It's for things that the public can have. A police force, fire department, clean water, good public schools, paved streets, things that the community uses so we can live our life and not have to have everything be privatized. Okay. But a Major League Baseball stadium should be privatized. Do you know why? It's not a public thing. It's a palace for billionaires. Okay. That's why public money shouldn't be spent on that. But Pinellas County and St. Petersburg ponied up what would be hundreds of millions of dollars, whether it's raised through bonds or taxes or whatever. That's money raised that isn't going to other things that could help the community. It's being made to build another stadium on the wrong spot. Now, there's a deadline that's coming up. By the time you're hearing this, it'll be the 10th day of March, and it will be the middle of March. And at the end of this month, they have to have an agreement ratified and rubber stamped. Otherwise, the deal could fall apart and the Rays could lose a lot of land from this. Now, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Now, maybe it is the Rays getting cold feet. And maybe it is the Rays having a moment like I said when I saw that they were going to build a stadium on the exact spot where to the exact spot where all the problems are lying, which is the stadium that was built in the 80s to lure first the White Sox and then the Twins and the Mariners and the Giants, all these teams that were trying to lure. And then finally it opened, it was already obsolete. It was in the wrong place and it was the wrong design. To build it at the exact same spot I always thought was suicide. And maybe the Rays are realizing, wait a minute, did we just get dealt a decent hand? That if we backed out of this, we wouldn't be making the same mistake. Well, it doesn't appear to be that easy, because if they back out of this or this falls apart, where in the name of Fred McGriff and Tom Amansky are the Rays going to play between now and the year 2029? Seriously, where the hell are they going to play? And so this is not getting better anytime soon. And so with an article by Evan Drellich is pointing out that maybe, just maybe, Rob Manfred is going to pressure Stu Sternberg, the owner of the Rays, to sell the damn team. And it sounds like other owners in the executive committee and everything like that may be getting on board, as if to say, you are blowing Central Florida. Central Florida should be a pretty lucrative market. The Rays actually have a good-sized fan base. You wouldn't know it from their attendance numbers, but they have good viewership. They get good TV ratings. They have a solid fan base. They just don't drive way out to St. Petersburg. And by the way, where it's located, they might as well be in St. Petersburg, Russia, as opposed to St. Petersburg, Florida. And if this is going to fall apart, it would kind of make sense to have Manfred say, all right, you know what? Get out. Sell the team. And the pressure is going to be put upon them based upon revenue sharing that they could be getting. Now, according to Forbes, the Rays are valued to be a $1.25 billion franchise. I mean, I've never been a billionaire. I want to stop that rumor immediately. I would think that if I'm in a situation where, man, this is a massive headache. If I sell this thing, it's no longer my massive headache. The Sternberg family and the ownership there has done a decent job in some ways, because the Rays have put a competitive team on the field for most of the last bunch of years. They went to the World Series in the COVID year. They had a wonderful year in 2021 where they stubbed their toe against Boston in the playoffs. They're usually a competitive team. And they've done so on a shoestring budget in a terrible ballpark that's built in the wrong place. But if this whole thing is just going to cause a major headache, and if this thing falls apart, are they back to square one? Where are they going to put the team? They're going to play in Steinbrenner Stadium, the minor league ballpark for the Yankees, because of the emergency situation. But where are they going to do after that? I mean, sadly, the Louisiana Superdome can no longer be configured for baseball. There are very few places on the planet you can put a Major League Baseball team now. This is the whole problem that's going on with the A's. It's going on with the Rays right now. You can't have two Major League Baseball teams wandering around the desert or the Everglades looking for a place to play. And maybe a new ownership would be the right thing to do and the right way to handle this, because if they can't work out a deal, and it doesn't look like they're about to, then this situation is going to go on. I mean, let's face it, in perpetuity. And baseball can't handle that. Hey, let's hear from our friends at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So if you've missed the opening tip-off, or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your bets with a same-game parlay. Let me tell you something. There was a fabulous game that went on today between the Bucks and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And man, oh man, if you started to say, oh, Giannis is going to do this and Mitchell is going to do that, you start putting them all together, you can make yourself some serious coin. Boy, Cleveland's pretty good. Imagine if it's Cleveland and the Lakers. I think that's what they want. LeBron versus the Cavs. Well, we could put money on that too. And you know what? I never feel like I've missed my chance, because you can use the app. It's so easy to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new customers can bet $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. One of my listeners who's coming in right now is Tim. Is it Frith? Tim Frith said, should Stuart Sternberg sell seashells down by the seashore? Should Stuart Sternberg sell the Rays to the Glazers, who currently own the Buccaneers? Sure. You know, it's funny. I mean, the Tampa Bay is a decent sports market. You see they support the Buccaneers. You see that they support the Lightning. And I'm convinced they would support the Rays if they were playing downtown Tampa, which is where they should be playing. But the other thing is this is going to open up the chance for potential owners to be coming through. One that was is already being rumored and reported by the Athletic article is Eddie DeBartolo Jr., who that family owned the 49ers when the 49ers were the best team in football. I remember I was in the Bay Area and the DeBartolos were royalty there. And that was the age of Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and Roger Craig and Ronnie Lott and all of them, you know, Bill Walsh. If he was going to bring that to the Rays, well, there you go. The Joe Malloy is another one. He was the guy who took over the Yankees when Steinbrenner was suspended and basically let Buck Showalter and Stick Michael build the dynasty. But there are a lot of other ownership groups that are floating around out there. One is led by Barry Larkin, Hall of Famer Barry Larkin, and a fellow by the name of Jim Schnorf run the Orlando Dreamers, who Orlando is a big market. According to them, it's the 12th largest market in the country, bigger than a lot of markets that currently have a Major League Baseball team. They have a site where they can build a stadium. They've done the economic study. They've done the land parcel study. They've done all the different, all the different studies to build a design for this ballpark. And it's a pretty cool looking ballpark, pretty futuristic ballpark. And maybe, they've been clamoring to try to put a team in Orlando since the days of the 1992-93 expansion. And if Orlando comes in and says, hey, you still get Central Florida. You can have the Orlando market and siphon off some of the Tampa Bay market. And, we get tourism, they get tourism, I mean, I think Tampa Bay is probably a better place for Major League Baseball than Orlando, but who knows? They've been in Tampa Bay since 1998, and we're seeing what's happened. They've been needing a new stadium for decades, and it caused a hurricane to speed this process up. If I'm Orlando, I'm putting together a big project. If I'm putting together a big package, for one, I never want to see a fan base lose their team. I could point to, like, I've pointed to Omaha before. Omaha, they would be, there's corporate money there. It's a big market, and they have a stadium they can play in tomorrow. The stadium where they play the College Baseball World Series is pretty much ready for Major League Baseball. And they'd be the first, big league team in there. So they'd be a big deal in Omaha and create natural rivals with the Royals or the Cardinals. If you're going to move the team, that's where you move them. But I don't want to move a team. Portland seems to have some cool stuff going on. The city of Salt Lake City has some cool stuff going on. I don't think baseball wants to lose Central Florida, but we haven't seen it work yet. We haven't seen the team play with a proper stadium yet. But they may have to force it. And if this deal is going to fall apart, it might be time to force an ownership change. And I've seen commissioners force ownership change. When the McCourts were basically using the Dodgers as their own ATM machine and involved, and were about to bankrupt the Dodgers, and the Dodgers couldn't afford to sign big-time free agents. I'm not talking about bizarro world right now. There was a period of time where the Dodgers could not sign big-time free agents because of the ownership. Think about that world that we were living in at that point. And it was clear it was because the family running it was a mess, and they were dragging the team into the mud. And the commissioner, Selig at the time, stepped in and forced an ownership change. And there was ownership changes that were made when the Expos went through that whole debacle, and the owner of the Expos was Loria. He wound up taking over the Marlins. The owner of the Marlins was the Henry Group, who wound up taking over the Red Sox. McCourt wanted to buy the Red Sox. I mean, there seemed to be some malleability in the influence that the commissioner had on owners. It was partly because Bud Selig was an owner of the Milwaukee Brewers, and there was a tremendous conflict of interest there, but I digress. But if the commissioner of baseball can step in and change ownership and force teams to sell, I'm sure all the fans in Oakland are saying, hello, you had the Fishers running the team into the ground. You have a region of the country that every other person is a billionaire. You couldn't come up with forcing the Fishers to sell instead of having this debacle, this self-imposed debacle in Sacramento. What's going on with Tampa Bay is not self-imposed. That was a hurricane destroying Tropicana Field. Okay? They wanted out of Tropicana Field, but they're playing in Steinbrenner Park because of a natural disaster. The natural disaster in Oakland were the existence of the Fisher family. And John Fisher running the team in the ground intentionally. He was still accepting revenue sharing while tanking the team and raising the ticket prices. Oh, by the way, on that executive committee to force or potentially force a sale with the Rays is Fisher, in one of the weird, ironic moments in the world. They should be looking at ownerships who are basically dragging teams into the ground. Why the hell are the Angels and the Marlins not two of the best teams in baseball? Miami is a perfect baseball market. Perfect. And they've been a Mickey Mouse organization for generations now. And they had a team, you have to go all the way back to 2 years ago, where the Marlins had an exciting baseball team. Remember in 2023, they won 84 games. They were a playoff team. Were they a great team? No, but they had young talent on the team. They had some exciting talent on the team. They had Arise, they had Brian De La Cruz, They had, Jazz Chisholm Jr. on the team. Sandy Alcantara was coming off of a Cy Young award. Jesus Luzardo was looking like a solid pitcher. And all of a sudden, and Kim Ng was running the team. And you looked at them and said, look at this. They're putting together a good young team that could contend for years to come. Oh, no, sorry, we broke them apart. The next year, they're a 100-loss team. Ng is gone. Schumacher's gone. Almost all the players I mentioned are traded away. The Marlins are a Mickey Mouse organization. That ownership should be forced to sell. That they fleeced. I mean, if you read about the building of that stadium, that is a con job. That the Ocean's 11 crowd would say, man, we're con artists, but we're not that. It was just fleecing the public for hundreds of millions of dollars and not following through on their end. A disastrous organization. Why aren't they being forced to sell to an actual organization that's trying to put something quality on the field? The Angels, how everyone goes there and knows it's the ownership. They get some of the best players in the world, Hall of Fame managers. Doesn't matter, all the talent that goes there, and it turns into a disaster every time. That is a gold mine. Yes, they're not they don't really play in Los Angeles, but they play in California. They play in Orange County, which is wealthy. They play in Orange County where they're popular, where baseball is popular, and they draw well, and they have great television ratings. And the ownership is driving this team into the ground. They had Trout and Ohtani at the same time, and they had fewer winning records in that stretch than the Marlins did. So why can't they force that ownership? Why not? Let me know. Because quite frankly, this is getting to be a bit much. All right, well, if you're a Yankee fan, some of the news going around about Yankeedom is getting more and more dire and putting up my thesis that the Yankees need to do something pretty soon to reinforce their pitching staff because they don't have a lot of depth. And if you are an American League team, then you have to go for it this year because the Yankees very well may not be an elite team because this is getting to be a bit much. If they lose Stanton and Cole and Soto from the squad, I'm sorry, this is not going to be good. This is not going to be good. And if he's going to get Tommy John surgery, then that's it. Then that is it. And quite frankly, if you're an American League team and you're not filling in all your holes right away, this is a year your team could win. This is where your team could absolutely win because there is no elite team in the American League right now. There's no team that you can honestly say can be a 100-win team. I mean, if there's a 100-win team, I'll be stunned. I'll be absolutely stunned out of my mind. But they just have to sit back and see what happens. If you're an American League team, squeeze every single victory, every single win, because it's going to come back at the end of the year. The Yankees could very well win the pennant this year. And if they do, Aaron Boone has to be, this is going to be his greatest achievement. But, oh dear, it's not good. It's not good. Whenever you hear Tommy John's name floating around, it is not a good thing. And, I want the best players on the field at all times. And yes, Garrett Cole is one of the best players in baseball. And if he's not there, you can't lose Garrett Cole and Juan Soto since the World Series and expect to come back and be a 90-something win team. You just can't. You just cannot. But it's going to bring us to the trivia question today. We bring up Tommy John. Tommy John, I think we remember him mainly as a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers, and also played a bunch of years with the Yankees. Won 288 games with the surgery. I mean, he was almost a 300 game winner with the surgery. And I think he's an absolute Hall of Famer. When he was traded from the White Sox to the Dodgers, the White Sox got a future Hall of Famer in the deal. Who was the future Hall of Famer who the White Sox acquired for Tommy John? That is a trivia question. Put it right down here on YouTube. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. And I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But most importantly, follow us here. And if you leave a comment, put that hashtag #EverydaySully. Talking about maybe, just maybe, forcing a sale and wondering if you could do more sales of ownerships that are not getting it done. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.